right, so back in my younger years when I was listening to the blues folks, some I mentioned earlier, Freddie King, Duane Allman, B.B. King, etc. Jimi Hendrix was alive still, and anyway, he had a lot of interesting ideas, and he was really a blues-based guitarist, as I've been informed by either an article, what have you, people that knew Jimmy and were around him or knew of his record collection, at least would say it was mostly blues, all his record collection. So that carried over. Obviously, he used large, powerful amplifiers, and in Hendrix's case, Marshall amplifiers, along with a Stratocaster, and it had certain tonal properties, certain sounds that generated from that, and feedback he used. And I actually had the pleasure of getting acquainted with Jim Marshall, the founder of that company, through the years. I talked to Jim on occasion, but anyway, a good loud amplifier. There's many amplifiers out there. I personally just recommend a good tube amplifier for doing the blues music, and I have a number of those that I've used through the years. And back in the day, way back, I used to use Marshalls. But anyway, there's a song that Jimmy did called Red House, and it's got some pretty cool little licks. I'll just give you a little snippet of that as far as a song that would employ the things we're talking about. And it's originally, I believe it was probably in B, but I'm doing it in A. We're kind of right in the heart of the neck right now, and it works out well for what we're doing today. So anyway, the Red House starts on, it's a seventh shape. So that's the intro to Red House. There's a lot of interesting things going on there, just from the bends to this little coming into that intervallic relationship I was talking about earlier with the major third over an A7 chord. And then he would sustain the third an octave lower. Good stuff, smart playing, tasteful playing, big bends. Now that's just a whole step, but then he goes into a very big bend on that last one. And Jimmy would do things like this. There's a red house over yonder, which I'm going to step up to here in just a moment, about rakes and how we use rakes in music. Using the Jimi Hendrix Red House example there, I was doing a few things with the bands. We kind of touched on that a little bit ago. But one of the things when the verse started, red house over yonder, and then he would take and do a little sweep action, which is pretty cool. And that's what I'm leading into right now, is throwing some of the chord tones, the sweeps, and how they relate in the music. Now that was Jimmy going to a 4 chord in the key of A, the D9 chord once again, and using this rake back and forth on that. You can do it on whatever chord you're on. Here's over the 1 chord. So here would be an example of a rake you could do. Now here I'm raking upwards, up pick. And sometimes you have to release the pressure there with your left hand. So I'm going to go up a whole step on my bend and then do the rake. So if somebody's on the A chord, and you can end it in different ways, but works over the one, right? And you're all there at home saying, yes, that's right, Jerry. It does work over the one. Isn't that wonderful how we bend to the third of the chord? Now, when you're playing, you don't have a lot of time to dissect all that. But once you've done it for thousands of times and several years, you just go to those notes. When you're in the midst of soloing, you will not have the time to break it all down in a split second. But you get those vocabulary things in your file cabinet upstairs, and you can pull them out as needed. So that would be over the one chord, or again. Now let's go back to that four chord that I took an excerpt from Jimi Hendrix's Red House. So here I'm on the ninth chord. Instead of doing it like so, I've got basically this kind of position happening. So I still have a root note, a fifth note, a seventh interval, and a ninth interval, and Jimmy would go ahead and start on that note, and then he would end up on the third of the chord and come back. So it's a really cool sound. And you could go, if you want to go up an octave, hit the A up here. Okay, and then the five chord, I've got a little different thing happening. It's that seventh shape. Sometimes people, when they first learn their basic open string chords, learn all their chords in the first position, first few frets, and it's a D7 shape. But when we take it to the third position here, we now have an E7. So on the five chord in the key of A, which is E7, E9, we've got this shape, and I would go. Again. So from the one chord, the four chord, the five chord, back to four, and so on. That's one of my favorite zones right there. I think I discovered that in the 1970s, listening to either Freddie King or B.B. King back then. And I thought, hey, that's a sweet spot. I'm going to have to use that the rest of my life playing the blues. Whenever you hear that B.B. with his quick hitting the root note, kind of get that sweet little. And I think it's probably Freddie King I heard with the hitting that. But they've all done that through the years and with different variations. So those aren't the rakes, but actually they can be a rake if you. I think many years ago I was doing music at a mega congregation, really big congregation, and one of the other guitar players, worship leaders, was saying, "Hey, I've kind of picked up on your style of hearing this little rake action that I like to do." So that could be incorporated in these things we've been talking about, which are typically out of arpeggios. But in this position up higher, it could look like a kind of like a stair step or an F form if we were in the first position. But now I'm actually not sounding that four string at all, but I'm just raking, and the right hand is muting the strings over here. treble. BB and the butterfly vibrato. I like to do the vibrato in relationship to the tempo of the tune, so sometimes I might do just a little slower type, depending on where the meter is, the tempo of the song. BB's famous for his the fast, sometimes they call it a butterfly type. I don't know what that has to do with butterflies other than fluttering, I suppose. So you can incorporate those rakes with those really cool licks. Anyway, there's a little bit on the rakes again. Here's with distortion. For the one chord again. For the 4 chord. Again. For the 5 chord. One more time. And then we'll go back to the 4. So here I'm hitting a 7. Then back to the 1. Yeah.